true love story.
The true love story.
It is a true love story.
That's not what I wrote.
Yeah.
I solved that by saying this. Guys, let's see what we can rent.
It's all your voices coming out
Yeah.
I'm sure, during that.
I grew up, as you said, partially in Denver, partially in England, and partially in Pakistan. So I've been pretty lucky about it.
Did you notice any helicopters or anything following you?
I love she got it.
I was doing research. Feel like we're so isolated sometimes.
Welcome to Amigos PC. If you were looking for a podcast with high standards and an appreciation for the finer things in life, like water polo, ballet, equestrian riding, cricket, and trips to the countryside, you're in the wrong place. If you're looking for a podcast that celebrates drinking, random thoughts, wacky conspiracies, memes, crypto, cinema, and a lot of other things that don't really make any sense, then you're in the right place. This is Amigos PC, and here are your hosts, Scott and Mark.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. You're hearing this for a reason. You haven't subscribed to the Amigos membership on Super Cash yet. For as little as $5, you can get access to our feed with no ads and exclusive membership discounts and merch.
Jump up to our $30 tier and get everything plus direct access to us via our Discord channel, live Amigo AMAs, quarterly giveaways, and crypto merch. For $1 a day or less, you can support an Amigo out.
Amigos, back at it again. Today we have guest Laura Buckles, an American actor, producer, writer, originally from Denver, Colorado. She has been in the film industry with titles such as Bold and the Beautiful, Mad Men, and Isolation In. She also has her own podcast called Says Who, where she interviews other actors and talks about their careers, similar to what we do. Laura, if you could just give us a little bit of who you are and a little bit more than what I just read on your bio.
Sure, although all of that was true. You weren't lying about a single thing on that.
Nice.
It is true. I am in America.
He normally does.
I'm currently in Los Angeles area.
Okay.
I'm a writer, producer, and actor. Really, anything they will give me money for, I will do. Almost anything in the entertainment industry. I am also an improv actor. I have a company here. I'm part of a company here in Los Angeles. We've been going strong for 20 seasons. I grew up, as you said, partially in Denver, partially in England, and partially in Pakistan, as many people do. And that is
that's normal upbringing,
right? That's what my mom tells me anyway.
Yeah. Nice. Were you like a military kid, maybe?
I was not, although the only other people that I know who sort of traveled as much as I did as a kid were military. Now, my mom never heard of, that sounds like a bad idea, that she didn't hear is, yeah, do that. Do it a lot. So she moved all of her children as a single mother to Pakistan and started her own business there, because nothing screams start your own business as a female living in Pakistan does. So she moved us all out there. She was actually in England getting her doctorate before that, and then to Pakistan, and then moved us back to Evergreen, Colorado, which is where I ended up graduating high school.
Wow. Yeah.
So I feel
That's fascinating. I mean, that's like all over.
what do you do with that? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's more exciting than my upbringing. Basically, just being in Arizona the whole time growing up. But I don't know. What do you think about that?
I mean, like you said, nothing screams let's start a business other than being in Pakistan. Obviously, that was probably like a culture shock for you then as a kid. growing up here and then all of a sudden there, where that their culture is way different, especially towards women. So what was that like?
It's an interesting thing because looking back on it, I realize how very different it was. But I was the youngest of three, so I went to preschool, kindergarten, first, second, and third grade in Pakistan, or most of kindergarten, first, second, and third grade was in Pakistan. We would wait until the monsoon season was over before we went out, which was an odd thing. And then I would start school in Colorado, and then about 6 weeks to 2 months in, we would pack everything up and fly over. And I guess I didn't know any better at the time, so I just thought, this is how you do it. This is completely normal.
Yeah.
And then at some point, you get to talking to other kids, and you're like, oh, that is different. You don't smuggle bubble gum into a foreign country in November? No, you don't do that? You're strange. But looking back on it, in some ways it was really an amazing experience because it sort of opened me up to travel and getting to know people and realizing that we're sort of, as cliche as it may sound, all the same under all of the things, other things that happen and go on. All just sort of trying to make things work and make our loved ones happy and have a roof over our heads and do right.
That also shows like the innocence that children have, right? Because it's like you're in kindergarten, first, second, third grade, and you're not. It's almost like ignorant to the reality of what's the adult agenda of things, right? I don't know if ignorant was the right word, but it, like I said, innocence, like that. You're just trying to be a kid, right? And all of a sudden you're getting a new rule, which is don't sneak in bubble gum in November. But but beyond that, it just shows, I guess, the innocence is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, it does. It was a little bit of blissful ignorance, and something.
There we go. That's a lighter way to say it.
You can use it. But it is something that I try and continue to find in my life and bring to the roles I do, and that kind of sort of innocence and openness and sense of a connection, if you will.
I was actually going to ask you, like, so you traveled all over, right? Living in England, living in Colorado, living in Pakistan, like, how does that really affect or influence, how you act? How it even got you into acting?
I think sort of two different things. One, I think that a lot of the ways that it influences me and my way of getting into character and finding it is I really did come away from traveling so much and living in so many different places with that sort of realization that I don't know that a lot of everyone has, which is that at the very core of human beings, we're all very much the same. Even when somebody is making bad decisions or poor decisions or, questionable decisions that maybe we wouldn't make, it isn't coming from a sense of other. It's just their path to, those things that the love and security and freedom that sort of all human beings crave. That's the way they think they can get to it. So I think that is something that I recognize when I go and look at characters and when I'm reading a script and starting out building a character is I first look for those connections, those reasons why they may be making those decisions or doing the things they're doing. And the getting into acting is, I wanted to be an actor from before I really understood what the word was, what we had to do. Both my parents were actors. My mom went on to do other things, as did my dad, but they were both actors, and I knew that from, the get-go. And I was taken to Broadway shows every time we were in New York City, and theater, and read plays as a child and that kind of stuff. So it was another one of those sort of organic things that when I used to play, people would play house. I would play the actor on set playing house. We'd play cops and robbers, and I would be like the actor as a cop. Very layered, meta. I don't know.
So with Pakistan, was that them preparing for roles? Were they going there to study being Pakistani and to
no, although that would be really cool and a much probably better story. No, my mother met someone that she got engaged to, who in England, but who his family was from Pakistan, and then we flew to meet his family and see how he lived the other half of the year. So we kind of split time between the two. And my mother fell in love with Pakistan and fell out of love with him, so decided to keep the country and not the person.
A true love story.
The true love story.
It is a true love story.
So you made mention of questionable decisions. The movie that we have you on with for Broken, there are plenty of questionable decisions made in that movie. Just with the main characters and things like that. What was it like playing the role that you had in the movie?
I say that this movie is a lot about people trying to make the best decision they can when all they have is bad decisions. And it's certainly my character.
I like that. That's good.
And certainly my character doesn't have that same sort of pressure on her. She's sort of the person who likes to solve puzzles and is in some ways, so she's a small town sheriff, but in some ways she's not like people usually portray the small town sheriff. She's very astute, and she's paying attention, and she's interested in what's going on in the greater world as well. So, and she also, I think it comes across. She also has, a soft spot, a soft spot for people who get themselves into situations they, probably didn't want to be in. And she has a soft spot for Brian. She also, don't get me wrong, thinks that if something illegal happened, he needs to pay for it, but she's got good idea that he probably didn't wake up. The first day, it's about a cross-country drive. And the first day of the drive, didn't wake up and say, boy, I hope it goes, this way. And it's just sort of this slow slide.
What I liked about your character, though, was it almost seemed, I don't want to say like it was a superpower, but it definitely was like a sixth sense of how they approached her detective style. And you portrayed that very well. Like, as soon as they were going to go into a scene of what it appeared to be like a sixth sense or a superpower, I don't, depending on how you want to look at it, just the way that your demeanor was while they were panning the camera or things like that, and then getting into that scene and you supposedly visually seeing it mentally in your head. I really like that aspect of how they portrayed it. Especially, well, not to get too many spoilers, but near the end, as the puzzle pieces were all starting to really fit, there was a bigger cutscene that just, it showcased that.
Yeah, it was something that we talked a lot about prior to filming when I was helping to write it, was this idea of how do you show kind of what's going on in somebody's head? Because she is putting together these pieces, and you don't just want her to, launch into as lovely as I am. You don't just want her to launch into a monologue of like, here's what's going on in my head. It's never the most entertaining, almost never the most entertaining movie moment. And so we talked about it a little bit, this idea that she had gone to Quantico and was studying, was serious about law enforcement. And then, her father was sick and she came back to this small town and it took over his life path or his plan. And that some of those things, not that I would love to have a superpower, but some of that sort of intuitive sense is sort of observational skills where she just observes things and files them away and then, is able to pull them out, sort of lay them on top of each other and say, does this fit? Does this fit? Almost like puzzle pieces.
Yeah. I would think like a regular, I'm not a detective obviously, but I would think like a regular detective would have some type of sense like that. I didn't go to school. I kind of passed, I failed the detective exam.
Yeah, he was trying. Just didn't work out.
It's always unfortunate. Well, I can
3 strikes and he was done.
You can play one on TV.
Yeah, see?
It almost seems...
Would you ever want to have been a cop in real life?
Oh, no.
Or have you ever had a role that you've done and you're like, man, I think I could have done this?
I think I stumbled upon it when I was very, very young. In that I don't want to do any of these things in real life. I just want to pretend I do them. And get paid for that.
Nice.
I can do that. That's awesome. I don't have to go to school.
That's good.
No.
That is a win-win.
It really is.
You don't have to solve problems as far as cop stuff or anything like that. It's a win-win.
You never have to
knows
do
the
the
ending.
You
paperwork.
just clock out.
Yeah. Oh, that's got to be the
paperwork.
worst part.
That's-
It has to be the worst part. I could just see a police officer, they're trying to figure out this murder. Once they figure it out, they're like, oh, the paperwork. I can't believe it.
Oh, much
All this
paperwork. Exactly.
Then you wonder why they're so mean
just
to the perps, right? They're just like, dude, you understand you're making me do all this paperwork.
Exactly. It's just not.
They should make it like a Scantron kind of thing where you just bubble each kind of scenario and you just fill it through. Would that make it easier? Murder, knife,
There was
Where's
it's almost like
here?
pencil.
So it's like in the car
Yeah.
with the gun with Mrs. Violet. Like, no.
All right, there's no location. Just mark other. You mark
what is his
other.
name? Mr. Mustard.
Colonel Mustard? Colonel Mustard did it.
Yeah,
He's like, wow, you're
that's
these,
not my name
these
at
are
all.
fine.
These are bad notes. We can't convict this guy. The prosecution would hate this guy or that police force.
Oh, no, they got the worst detective.
She's
The worst cop.
or talk to text. My talk to text
Yeah.
hates me, so it would be like,
Oh yeah, that's perfect right there. There's so many just like commas and like exclamation points.
and the word exclamation point. He was a very bad man! Exclamation
Yeah,
point.
no.
Comma.
Oh, he was exciting. Yeah, exciting murder.
And this is why I'm not really.
These are great.
Yeah.
Because I would do that. It would be
She's just
amusing.
sending
to me. I
her
would do that.
note. She's
Yeah.
just sending her voice memo to the report. Like, what is this?
Yeah, just talking it in. That would be
Yeah, it
easier
would.
though. They could be out solving more crimes. See that? We should be like on a panel of something to make things happen.
What I'd really like is then when they're like reading it into evidence at the trial. The talk to text. Really? Uh-huh.
Could
No,
you
it really was
imagine?
nothing.
They're just doing that.
I know the way things sometimes seem, it could go there. That could happen, guys. This could be in our future.
It probably is.
And this whole court appearance will be sponsored by Mountain Dew. And
Mountain Dew,
And then we'll
Doritos,
just-
and anger.
Mountain Dew Dorito Court of Appeals. We're gonna listen to the Memo reading.
Set to music.
Yeah.
So it's
That should be,
entertaining.
yeah, that's good. Great ideas, guys.
Sorry.
Yeah. We had Tina on not that long ago, Tina Marie Springham, and we were kind of talking about the interchange between you guys at the diner and how she related to her role, and then you were doing a lot of the detective work there at the diner as well, just trying to figure out who fits where. One thing that kind of got, I don't know if it was lost, but for at least me, kind of didn't make it made sense, but it didn't, because after the fact you went in and questioned these people, but you know, two different cars which you related to in the movie and things like that. But then like just this couple just seemed off. Were they just doing that just to like have a comparison in the movie with this couple versus the actual people we were following, or were they really a part of everything? Or am I giving too much away that you really... Yeah, I might be giving too much away at this point.
I will say that. Here's what I can say about that. So I think you're talking about the couple that I pull over.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert,
Oops.
I pull someone over in the movie.
Oh no, not a police officer pulling someone over.
What?
You're doing your job, I see.
Ugh. Stupid paperwork. Anyway, my point is...
Well, we'll see you at the Mountain Dew Court of Appeals. See you at the Mountain Dew Court of Appeals.
What I will say is for people who are watching the movie, and if you want to go back and take a look, in that diner scene, in that first diner scene, if you are paying attention, you realize there is a very short part of that scene where you do realize that they are connected.
But I'm surprised that Mark paid attention enough to notice that.
Well, like, the
That's
dots connected more down the road, because I was like,
Oh,
okay,
gotcha.
I don't understand what happens with them. But then down the road, you're like, oh, okay, I get it. They are, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just too slow with that kind of stuff.
It's a subtle thing. There's
No.
Yeah,
You know
that's
what?
what it is. I think that's really what it is.
we like the subtle. I don't. But yeah, they are definitely connected. It is about. They say this in the liner notes, not liner notes. That would be whatever. Anyway, in the blurb, they say this is a cross-country drug run, and
Yeah.
basically this particular drug run, or the way they do these drug runs, is one team drives it halfway across the country with the drugs, and another team is driving the other way with the money. And they, instead of exchanging money and drugs, so they don't get caught, they exchange cars.
Yeah,
That's smart.
because it was. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really smart. Did you guys have a consultant for that, or a story?
Or tell us how you relate to a drug.
Or yeah, tell us some behind the scenes. What does a writing room kind of look like? Would
For
it
a
be
drug run.
what you see on TV, where it's like there's a whole bunch of whiteboards in the background, and you guys are all just talking and pinpointing things
Somebody
and
comes in with
that kind of stuff,
comes in
or
with
is it kind of
sandwiches and throws it to
Starbucks?
us.
Yeah, some there's sandwiches out all the time,
This one was
or is it actually on the set of somewhere?
like in the back, like smoking and angrily yelling, "That's not what I wrote."
Yeah,
I mean, although that
Yeah.
sounds like fun.
yeah, that's what all those are good.
Oh, this one,
Yeah.
this particular, I don't even know if it was really a writer's room, but Patrick, who came up with the story and was one of the writers and also directed it, this whole thing started at a nightclub. He was at a nightclub and he saw this very sort of attractive, well-dressed guy just sort of sitting there very quietly on his own, not talking to anybody, looking at anyone, just kind of just sitting, waiting, and in his head, he was like, I wonder what the story with that guy is. And so he started spinning out the story. A little bit later, he
Wow.
met someone or spoke with somebody who had knowledge of these sort of drug runs and kind of how
Oh wow.
these some people do. So he just took these little pieces of art.
Yeah.
He may have actually read a story about it. As you know, he just took these little pieces of stories, you know, whether he was reading them or talking to people, and built up this story. And then he did first pass at a script. This is a long time ago. And in fact, one iteration of this story we shot a very long time ago, and then probably 7 or 8 years ago, he decided that he wanted to give the story another try and tell the story a little bit differently. And so he kind of dusted off all the old script and the notes and brought it to me, and I did a first sort of rewrite and punch up, and then contacted Keith Johnson, who's amazing, and anything in that script that doesn't work is all me and my fault and not his, I promise you. But Keith took
Nice. Falling on the sword.
I know what I do well.
Yeah.
And whatever. And he took a really good hefty pass at it, did some research and talked to people in law enforcement and all those kinds of things, and then sent it back over to Patrick. So really our writers' rooms were very much sort of, I think Keith and I met a few times in person, but it was mostly just one iteration, send it over to the next person.
Emails.
Yep. It's like telephone for a script.
Yep.
I don't know.
Oh, I didn't even realize you had written some of this too. That's awesome. So with your character, the sheriff, right?
In the bio, I think, isn't it?
What? You have a unique look in the show. Like, you don't look obviously like you do in the movie, right? So how does that vision come, right? Like, how do you like, okay, this is what she needs to look like? Like, where does that come from? Obviously, you got to wear a sheriff's jacket. That's obvious, right?
Sure.
Role, but
and a badge.
Right, but then, like, what made you think, like, you know what, I need to have like my hair cut this certain way, or was even that just maybe a suggestion by somebody, or things like that? Like I said, I don't know if I like overanalyze movies sometimes, or even shows, but like I just think about things like that. Like, okay, well, why did they choose them to make? Because there's always like shows like, let's give Mad Men is maybe a good example, and Game of Thrones, but there's always something somewhere, right? And it's there for a reason. So then that's what makes me think, or maybe even overanalyze a little bit of, why'd they pick her haircut that way? Like, why does she have to look at this, like this stature, things like that?
Yeah, so it kind of is an amalgamation of a number of things. There's what my hair looked like, and I was coming off of a different theater project, so I wasn't going to have much time to do. Wasn't like I could like grow it out or anything. And then it was a discussion with Patrick as the director, and Vanessa, who was our wardrobe person, but also kind of was looking at it sort of from a visual aspect of what we could and what we had time to do with me. And some of it was just this idea that she's a small town. Like I said, it's a small town sheriff. This town is not very big. The county is bigger, but also she went to the big city. But she's not as rural as maybe some people would be in that situation. And so we talked about that and kind of what she would put up with, like rolling out of bed every morning. She really gonna curl her hair and do her eyelashes? Or is she gonna be like, good enough? Much like me, good enough.
Yeah.
Is anything sticking up? I'm ready to go.
Good enough.
So we did have that conversation, and then there was many a Pinterest board on the wardrobe ideas for when she's not in, obviously when she's in uniform, but when she's not in uniform, she is for part of the.
That'd have been so funny if you did a whole Pinterest of when she is in uniform, like just different cop outfits.
Is it green? Is it brown?
That would be hilarious. A whole bunch of different colors of cop. What
Pants?
district is she
No
in? Or,
pants.
like whatever they're called. What unit?
That's right.
She's like all over.
Should be a skirt.
She covers the whole state.
What size? I mean, there was a little back and forth, and then I solved that by saying this, guys, let's see what we can rent. Really romantic, right?
Yeah.
It's like the
Smart.
positive aspect of independent filmmaking. I don't know what's cheapest.
Yep. That's smart.
I do find it fascinating though that you guys like had that conversation. Like that's a conversation that takes place in this
Well, you
process.
have to. Every little detail. Yeah, think about it.
It's so fascinating. Just
It's a funny thing because there are, things you don't think about, but in real life, of course, you have to. We didn't see at her house, but if we would have had to have this conversation of like, is she a messy person? Is she a clean person? Does she pick up after herself? Right? Because then the art department and production designer would have their input, but so that it would reflect the character. I mean, there were questions, obviously, also very independent, very low budget film. You kind of have to go with what you can get. But, there were conversations about what do most, most sheriffs wear green? Do they wear blue? Do they wear brown? Brown and khaki a lot. So that sort of research that comes into it, but it's not, it's not something you like, oh yeah, unless you're a production designer or, me, no, I'm kidding, but like a production designer or something, it's not even something that you would think, oh, they actually really thought about this in the palette of the film. And, notice that there's a lot of
Actually deep in the colors, I guess. Color schemes and everything.
Well, it's not just color schemes. It's just there's a certain look that gets portrayed, right? And it's like, well, how did that like? There's got to be a conversation. Things just don't happen just because she got out of bed and I'm ready to go, like she was.
Oh yeah, like is she a pajama? Is she a pajama wearer, or is she a shirt to
Was
bed
it
wearer?
pajama day?
That's a thing.
During Sheriff Day, said that day. You don't know.
Yeah.
Exactly. All these things.
Or you forgot your suit and you came in pajamas, and you just shot it that way.
I mean,
Since
I
she's the
would
only
have
sheriff.
There you go.
Show up in like a onesie. I'm ready.
Just pajamas all day. Where's all right? I guess we'll see how this runs. I don't know.
Sheriff
And
and
go
plaid.
For the
I don't know.
script. Oh, see this. And
I don't remember an all pajama scene.
meanwhile, I'm like,
I
oh
guess we're
yeah, no,
trying.
yeah. I wrote it just like this.
Let's just do it, guys.
It's fine.
Yeah, that's one thing that we asked Tina Marie, especially with her scenes in the diner. That some of the dialogue with her, especially talking to you as you were like maybe leaving or something, or coming or going, it felt, at least to me, it felt like there was like a little ad lib in there, and she said no, that was all part of the writing. Since you wrote it, I'm not a writer. That's not obviously this show, right? But like, how do you pull something off? Like for me, like when she was like at one of the scenes you had to go, and she just like stopped you as you left your cup of coffee, and you're like, she's like, no, it's on the house, and do your thing because you're about to. It almost looked like you're about to pay. She's like, no, it's on the house, and you walked out. And for me, the way that she portrayed it, it really came off like she just thought of that right on the fly. It's on the house, and I could see a diner, a waitress at a diner really saying that to a police officer. Like it's just one of those things.
Mm-hmm.
One, was there like a lot of ad lib that you were able to do in your role, or with the script itself, like how do you even write like that? That's just for me fascinating. Like I said.
So there's a lot of voices in my head.
Nice.
Good.
Great answer.
So,
That is a great answer.
Wait a minute. So I'm sure different writers have different ways of doing things, but I am in a constant conversation with the characters. I can auditorily
nice.
sort of hear
In your head?
what they would say, like, in my head, I hear what they would say and how they would say it. And so, like you said, I could see a waitress at a diner saying that to a police officer. Clearly, so could I. So, it's that thing of like, what would you say if your friend and a police officer was getting up to go and she went to, pay for her coffee? What would you say? Oh, don't worry about it. It's on the house, right?
Yeah.
And then I type that out, and then often, if you're lucky, you get to have a table read of it, so you get to hear actors saying it, and then you get to go, that sounded nothing like I thought it would, and then you fix it, hopefully. Get another chance.
Nice. Follow-up question: do the voices have different accents or anything in your head? Like, do they all have the same kind of thing, or are they different?
They
have different
mean
ones?
every day, but voices are the ones when I'm writing. No, when I'm writing, it depends on the characters. They'll start to take on.
Sky's the limit. I like it.
Yeah. No, mostly the real voices in my head
That's
just
cool.
sound like, angry me and my mother.
Normal.
And this is almost like therapy. I'm so glad you had me on.
That's cool.
Hey, and it's free.
Well, that's kind of what we call it. We were going to name it that, the Amigos Therapy, but we decided not.
Or worried about lawsuits or something. Understand?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. People saying you guys aren't doctors,
Who says?
even though Mark failed the exam 3 times. But
Right? I mean, I'm sure there's something we can do online and just have something printed. I wouldn't
I'm
mind
sure.
a PhD after
you can
my
like
name
marry
or
people,
something.
right?
Exactly what I was going to say. You can get a piece of paper to marry people online.
You can marry,
Why not a
so why not?
I think hey,
online
you got to cut the thing out.
piece of paper?
You just print it out. Just a white paper. You just cut it out.
As if your ink runs out halfway through. So it's like, that doesn't look right.
Yeah,
Why is half of it white?
online.
Well, with us, we're on a podcast, and like I was saying earlier before we came on, you have, or when I introduced you, you have a podcast called Says Who, where you interview actors. Similar, I'm sure it's nothing like how we're doing it, but
It's all your voices coming out.
Yeah.
I'm sure during that.
Darn it, now you know.
obviously being in the business, I'm sure that's what gave you the idea to have and interview actors. What made you want to start initially just the podcast? Were you already having conversations with actors and you're like, you know what, we need to record this? Because that's kind of how our conversation started, our podcast.
Nice. Really, how it came about is I was doing research. You know, actors feel like we're so isolated sometimes, and like, oh, I'm the only person who's ever gone through this. You know, and people always say, like, you know, learn from your other actors, which is great, except that the actors you can usually find, you know, interviews on and you know, about their lives are the very top tier of their careers usually. You know, you don't hear about like what it's like when you get dropped by your agent, or you haven't auditioned in 3 months, or you know what it feels like your first time you step on set for a co-star role, and like how confusing it is, and who do you go tell you're even there? You know, there's no research for that. There's no like interview for that. And at the same time as I was kind of mulling that over and looking at people kind of at my tier and the tier just slightly above me to try and get, just a little bit of a blueprint for what's going on. At the same time I was doing that, I was watching David Letterman started his new interview show, and I was watching that, and there's Vogue did a thing of like 70, I don't know how many questions with celebrities where they would go over and follow them around with Steadicam and ask them questions. Definitely was not staged, but I started to think that the reason we interview celebrities is because they're celebrities, but the reason they're interesting is that they're people. So I decided that I would do my own research and record it, and that's how it started. Says Who Conversations with Actors was just a little bit about kind of what it's like to be. All of the actors on my show are working actors. Many of them no longer do another job, but what they do within the industry is sort of very diverse. Talked to Jason Broad, who's an amazing actor who I've hired for things, but he makes most of his living out of looping. So he goes in and he does the like background voices and the like, yeah.
That's cool.
And who knew you could make an entire living out of that? You can. Or I have another person who I interviewed who does audiobooks, and that's how he makes his living. Mm-hmm. So it was
me and Mark loved those, but we couldn't pull that off reading.
Like halfway through,
we love listening to them.
I don't know how to read, so I have the audiobook.
Yeah, we couldn't read. They'd be like, "Oh my god, what is this guy? He's like 8, like his reading level of a third grader."
Does your show
sound it out? Hang on, guys. So the tree branches are blowing.
Sounds
just
just
my
like
show.
my son right now. Does your show have something that it does? Like, give us like a little teaser as like, does your show have something specific that it does every episode, or is it off the rails just like our show where we're just all over the place?
This is structure.
It is both. It is both of those things. So it's
nice.
Structured in 3 parts. The first is just a longer form getting to know the actor, where we just chat about whatever comes up. Then we go into a lightning round, and it's just very fast answers to random questions, like
worth double points.
There's some double points if you do it fast enough. Just questions like breakfast, sweet or savory, things like that.
Okay.
Really deep-seated questions. And then the very last
They're good.
section is the questions that James Lifton used to ask inside the actor's studio, because every actor who's ever seen the show has wanted to answer those 10 questions, but most of us are never going to get a chance to. So a very small portion have now been able to do it.
I think he passed, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has.
Not to be dark, but hasn't he passed?
He has. That's why he's no longer asking those questions.
Yeah.
I don't.
There could be another one, right? There could be another Lipton.
Yeah. Or, well, they may do it. I don't know if Inside the Actors Studio is shuttered or if they have found another host. I don't know. I could have done research.
Maybe like a
Us too.
time to.
I knew that was going to be a question,
pitch
and I missed it.
Right. Maybe it could be me, because I know how to ask those questions.
Oh, see? Yeah. Exactly.
Would be more like Between Two Ferns than Inside the Actors Studio. That's fine.
That's so good.
Yeah, so that's...
Have you had moments like
Galifianakis?
that? Have you had moments like, I know that his are kind like, for at least for him, if they know the show, they know what to expect of Zach, but Have you had moments like that where you're asking some questions and then all of a sudden they get kind of like ornery or anything like that?
I was smart. Well, I'm going to claim it was smart. I think it was just that they're the only people I could talk into doing it at first. But I was smart enough to have my friends on first. And then after that, as I brought in, people sort of outside my circle, I sent them a link to already done ones so that they kind of knew going in what they were getting into. So I've been pretty lucky about it. Also, actors tend to like talking about acting, even if they don't like talking about themselves. I did, there are some interviews where...
we didn't notice that at all.
Well, you stay in it long enough to see that. I had interviews with people who like varied parents, and I didn't know that. So, I asked them some question, and I was like, okay. And suddenly I'm Barbara Walters, and I'm making people cry.
Which parent would you take to prom?
That actually brings up a very good question then. So while you're doing this, have you had someone cry on your show yet? And if so, how did you handle it?
Good one.
Because we didn't handle that.
Because we have some crying questions coming.
And then I flipped the table and stored. No, I have
nice,
amazing person, wonderful actor, and I would say that even if I weren't being recorded. It just kind of like I said at the beginning. Hey, this is good because I'm coming right back to this. Kind of like I said at the beginning. It's all about connection and it's all about understanding that we're all kind of the same underneath it all. So, I just sat with her and I listened to her story and validated where she was. And then I flipped the table and stormed it out. It all ends with flipping the table. But,
Of course. That's how our show ends. Just wait.
At least someone.
I feel at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what we do here.
Well, speaking of like asking questions, things like that, we have questions that we ask at the end of the show. Scott, if you want to go ahead and go into that.
Wow. So one of my questions, which is funny because I picked this before, we actually had all this fun back and forth. Can you impersonate anyone famous? Which I guess could be any voices in your head. So do you have an impersonation that you could do?
So here's a fun thing.
If so, if not, or who would you want to if you could?
So I do improv, and we do a lot of, well, not a lot, but we do a fair amount of impersonations. I just did Jamie Lee Curtis, which is a lot of fun. But what I've found is that I'm not very good at them. But if I announce who they are, and I have like the wig and everything, nice. then people are like, "Oh my gosh, you're so good at that!" And I'm like, "Yes, really am." So no, I don't really do any impersonations, but I just tell people that I do, and then they're like, "Yeah, that was really good."
I like it. So is it Halloween, Jamie Lee Curtis,
or is it True Lies,
or is it like True Lies, or is it Activia, Jamie Lee Curtis? Like which one?
So in years past, I was doing Activia, Jamie Lee Curtis, but this was wigged.
Okay.
Jamie Lee Curtis for a Halloween Kills, so the wavy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a bridge and a gap. I like that. Have you ever had a weird Uber experience?
Oh wow.
So crazy ride you've been in, and
I haven't had it.
Someone just wouldn't quit talking to you.
Weird what? We did very recently.
Or taxi. Have you been in a taxi lately?
On bus ride.
Are those around anymore?
Which is neither a taxi or an Uber. But I was going to.
Was that your surrounding patrons of the bus?
No, there was no one but me on the bus. We were going to the Newark airport late at night, and the bus driver pulled over under an underpass, and I was like, "This is a defining moment in my life. I'm not exactly sure what's going on here."
Was it the other voices? Was it the other voices in the head?
Yeah, well, I felt safer because I knew that there were many, many people in my head. No, he pulled over and he was like, we're just going to wait here for a while. And I was like, I don't think we are. I think you're going to just keep driving. That was weird and somewhat scary thing. Luckily, he was like, oh, I guess, yeah, this must seem weird to you. Yeah, because it's like,
no, it doesn't.
And I'm under an underpass with a random guy in a bus. Sure, it's normal.
It's creepy.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, can you at least go somewhere well lit, please?
If you're gonna, it wasn't even like I'm gonna pull over and get some coffee. I think it's court.
No, it's under an underpass of all things.
It's like a pass, and I'm, it was probably something to do with like keeping on schedule. But I was like, dude, you are just gonna have to pull into the Newark airport 15 minutes too early. Sorry, they're all gonna know you're speeding. Fine.
Wow. Well, I mean, you spoke up and he took that, he heeded with it, so that's...
Yeah.
Did you notice any helicopters or anything following? Because that's what you would do, right? You would hide her, and that's what I would do. Hide being followed by the helicopters.
Actually, no,
it was
weird and it was scary, but yeah, he did. He went on and he kind of, I think, realized that I don't think he thought it through. I don't think he thought what it would seem like to, 20-something female all by herself. He just didn't think that through. He does now, though.
Yeah, think about that. So you speaking up and having him and go on, like, I wonder if, because he's probably a career bus driver. He probably retired a bus driver. He probably...
You guys are all assuming. He's a doctor
probably,
now.
Yeah. I am assuming
He's working his way through.
I'm trying to paint the picture here, guys.
You guys assuming.
But I wonder if, like, on that route that he drove for 30 years, if he now changes spots because of that interaction.
I would hope so,
Because that's the place that they shared together?
No,
what
because
do you mean?
she made a defining moment.
Because I would hope that, honestly, I do hope that he realized thinks about things a little bit differently. Just in terms of, like, he knew I was safe, I'm sure. He was like, I'm not a creepy guy. By the way, never say I'm not a creepy guy. 100% makes you a creepy guy. That's my point.
You're a creepy guy.
See? Good work.
You are a sheriff.
I'm a sheriff.
At least you play
one. Or I play one on...
Sixth Sense is keeping it.
But no, I do hope that it did, in some way, sort of enlighten him to think of, like, other people may not be having exactly the same experience that he thinks he's having. Be a little more aware of it. This was supposed to be some sort of lighthearted question, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It turned into it, kind of. It was like a roller coaster, but it was fun. We got through
it. Went with me. Congratulations.
Your last question. Yeah. You made it through the lightning round. The last question is conspiracy theories. What is one that you believe in, or that you think is the most
legitimate,
probable, or that you're legitimate, like you're hanging your hat on, like, all right, this flat earth thing's right, or this people under the earth is a thing? I don't know. JFK was abducted and he's still ruling somewhere. I don't know.
I like all of these.
Dead right now.
I wonder if I do.
I made the last one up. That could be one. Who knows?
I wonder if I do believe in some conspiracy theory so strongly that I don't even realize it's a conspiracy theory, because I just think it's a fact.
Ooh.
Like, there's a...
Oh, then they did their job.
There's a race of super rats, but everybody knows that. So it's not a conspiracy theory. The sewer people of New York. I don't know if that's necessarily a conspiracy theory, but I like to buy into that. I like the idea. I like the idea of like some alternate culture that lives underground.
Do you think that Dennis Leary is their leader?
I 100% think that Dennis Leary is their leader, and that they're just waiting for Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes. It's just.
I love she got it.
Perfect.
In a world where the only songs are commercial jingles, come on.
Yeah.
Is this Demolition Man?
Ding, light bulb. We got it.
Demolition for 500, Alex?
The lightning round struck.
Or what is? Yes. And how much did you wager?
Double or nothing?
Yeah, double or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we greatly appreciate that you came on the show. If you could just tell us, where we can find you. Obviously, you came on the show for everybody to pick up Broken, which that actually should have dropped, or it's about to drop, right?
It dropped.
Just if you could.
Yeah, you can rent her by. You can rent her by now.
Oh, okay.
Yes, you can. Yeah. So Broken you can find on most video platforms. So Amazon, Apple TV, iTunes. I'm gonna forget some. Xbox, In Demand, Dish, others. I should be better at this part.
Probably Voodoo. Maybe
Voodoo. Good one. Yes, Voodoo's. That's true.
Voodoo.
So everybody should go and do that and take a look at the diner scene and see what I was talking about the clue about connecting those two. You see what I did there? Brought it right back around. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
As far as finding me,
Perfectly done.
I'm mostly on Insta. I lurk on TikTok, but that doesn't get anybody anywhere because I don't do anything.
What about your podcast?
My podcast,
Where can we find your podcast?
Too. It's also a video cast. You can find my podcast on most of the places you can find podcasts. That's iTunes, Stitcher, other places I'm liking. If you search it, it will come.
You will find it.
Find it, including if you actually want to see people's reactions instead of just listening to them. You can find it on YouTube.
All right. Well, Amigos out.
This has been the Amigos PC. Make sure to like, subscribe, and review us on all your podcasting platforms. And visit us at AmigosPC.net. Get our entire library of content and Amigos merch. Till next time, adios.